Welcome to episode 221 of the Grip Strip podcast, the Penske Perfect with an asterisk edition of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, we're 1 week away from Motorsports Christmas and all that good stuff and everything, but a lot of good stuff here happening this past weekend here at Indy and North Wilkesboro and all that. Got the Team Penske shirt on, so fits the show, Penske Perfect. I don't know if we're Penske Perfect, but certainly someone is.
We try to do the best we can. I have facial hair, so I wouldn't be able to work for Penske, at least during the regular season. But either way, it was a great weekend for Penske this weekend, not only in qualifying for the Indianapolis 500, where for the second time in the team's history, they swept the front row, and Scott McLaughlin ran the fastest 4-lap average for qualifying in Indy 500 history. So there was all that going on. If you add root beer float head, 4 Penske cars were in the Fast 6. So we'll get into all of that, all the drama that took place for qualifying, the obvious Chevy advantage that was there, while with the boost, with the extra boost. But as it stands in terms of the race boost, it looks like it'll be a pretty good show. Or at least we hope so. And we'll talk about Young Money and what he did in his qualifying attempt. In the All-Star race, which was won last year by Kyle Larson, he showed up after qualifying, started tailback, and was able to make a move up through the field. Even had tire strategy, which may have worked if it was a different car, but he got a top 5 finish without any practice. And Joey Logano, though, did have practice. He did test at North Wilkesboro with these tires, and it definitely seemed to work well for the driver of the Shell Pennzoil Ford, getting his second All-Star win of his career, dominating the race, leading all but one lap. And I still don't know where Brad led that lap, and even though I saw it on the scoring. But Joey Logano gets the win. The Fords look like they were more competitive in general. The option soft tire definitely added a piece to the puzzle there. The track being repaved at North Wilkesboro made it and the way they repaved it made it very wide. So there's a lot to go into that. So we'll get into all the details from the All-Star race on Sunday morning after an apocalyptic rainstorm flooded the track out. Corey Heim won his third race of 2024 and continues on his run to try and win the Truck Series championship after probably getting screwed out of it last year and then losing his mind. I did go and gloss over one particular detail from the All-Star race, but for obvious reasons, I'm going to leave it till later because it's really good. Brendan Butterbean Queen having a great debut. Lane Riggs actually getting a finish after what has been a nightmare start to his rookie Truck Series campaign. And they get to do it all again on Friday night at Charlotte. So we'll get into the trucks. The San Marino Grand Prix, even though they call it something totally different now, Fish Lips ended up getting yet another victory, but it wasn't as straightforward as it has been in the past. The McLarens definitely are showing pace. But Lando Norris, I think if Oscar Piastri didn't have to take the 5-place grid drop, it might have been Oscar in that spot trying to go and get his first career Formula One win, back-to-back races. But we'll get into all the results and everything that comes from Imola as they go and head to Monaco, leading into, of course, the greatest day in motorsports, which we'll preview. Roundup, not as busy as it has been in recent weeks, but still have a few series to look at. We will preview the greatest day in motorsports with Monaco, the NASCAR triple header, ending with the Coca-Cola 600, possibility of a certain orange orangutan showing up there too, at the race and possibly affecting Kyle Larson's ability to fly into the racetrack, which would be pretty hilarious and totally NASCAR. And of course, we'll preview the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500 and how Kyle Larson will do, based on what we've seen so far in what limited practice he's been able to get. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing in his sim segment, and then we'll call it a day, before we do the greatest day in motorsports for the 5th time next week. So we'll start with Indianapolis 500 qualifying. Will Power, arrogant as he can be, going out there saying that they were going to win the pole and probably sweep the front row back at Long Beach, going and telling people that old push rods were finally banned, or no, they weren't allowed to banned. And in the process, Penske was going and running with the new push rods due to that, for the last couple of years, that gave them extra data. Okay, fine. That may be one thing. You add the fact that, of course, they cheated at St. Petersburg and were willing to go and continue doing that at Long Beach, going and trying to fade that, and then you have an advantage. Plus, you go and make a connection with AJ Foyt Racing to go and have Michael Cannon help. Michael Cannon's knowledge and strategies, which have made the AJ Foyt team an actual contender at Indianapolis again for the first time since the IRL days. And so, I mean, there's a bunch of things that worked in Penske's favor, but at the end of the day, Scotty McLaughlin, who went and won at Baba a couple of races ago and reinserted himself in the championship picture with that, went out and for his runs on Sunday was the dominant presence and ended up winning the pole in the yellow submarine for Penske in the Pennzoil car, getting his first pole at Indy, preventing Will Power from getting the pole. Joseph Newgarden starting third, getting a sweep of the front row, just like in 1988 when Rick Mears qualified on pole. And it was Danny Sullivan who was going on his way to winning the IndyCar championship that year. Rick Mears, who would go on to win that race, and the defending Indianapolis 500 winner, Al Unser Sr., on the outside of the front row. A lot of parallels to that time to now even. So, interesting front row. Chevrolet dominated the top 12 and got all 6 in the Firestone Fast 6. You had a lot of drama that way, or no drama in terms of the Honda side. But when it came to the Chevys, they were faster with the extra boost. Alexander Rossi was not happy with Will Power's exuberance, I guess, and he was trying to go and stick it on the front row and tried, and in the process almost wiped himself out a couple of times on his second run, trying to get the Hail Mary, but he was, you could see the look on Rossi's face and basically read his lips and tell how bemused he was by that. But I'm talking about all this, but let's go and get the starting order for the Indy 500, and we'll at least start with the top 12. Scott McLaughlin, as I mentioned, setting a 4-lap track record at 234.220 miles an hour. Will Power, 233.917, and Joseph Newgarden, 233.808, make the front row. Alexander Rossi, 233.090, Kyle Larson at 232.848, and Root Beer Floathead at 232.692 miles an hour, round out the Fast Six. Renus VK, after an epic rebuild and bunch of runs on Saturday, gets himself into the Fast 12, gives himself a chance to continue his prowess and streak of getting on the first 4 positions at the Indy 500 qualifying. Pato O'Ward was 8th, so giving 3 McLaren cars up there along with the 3 Penskes. Felix Rosenqvist was best in class for Honda at 232.305. Takuma Sato, the 2-time Indy 500 champion, driving for Rahal, somehow or another made the top 12. Kyle Kirkwood was in position to probably be the best in class, but had real sketchy moments on the final lap of his run. And then Ryan Hunter-Reay had to make compensations, a Brian Reinbold team, with their engine, and that came out there with his run. But in the end, when you're a one-off team, to go and make the Firestone Fast 12 at Indy speaks very highly of the team and the people they have there, and also Ryan Hunter-Reay being a former Indianapolis 500 winner and Indy Car Series champion. So, we'll start there. Penske has definitely got a lot of bad juju going on this season with IndyCar, and there's some things that we've heard, especially from Will Power, that would make you wonder about some of the making certain rule changes that probably affected Honda more than Chevy. But then Chevy had engine issues on Saturday with plenum fires, or whatever they wanted to, plenum events as they were calling them, and they became memes, and they were making t-shirts out of it. But in the end, Chevy gets all the front 6, Penske sweeps the front row, and Kyle Larson is starting 5th in his chance to possibly win the Indianapolis 500 on debut, in his IndyCar debut. A lot to unpack there, Josh.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there for sure. I think the drama that we had, this was probably one of the more dramatic qualifying days that we've had, weekends that we've had in a while. And it didn't really have to be people failing or being in danger of making the race, which that certainly was the case on Sunday. But certainly, yeah, the issues that Chevy had with plenum fire, we saw it first with Kyle Larson, then later on with Pato O'Ward, other Chevy cars Augustine Canapino was another that had that issue. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of weird issues that were coming about from the Chevys, which interestingly enough, Penske and Foyt, I think, were the only cars that didn't have that issue there. And so the rest of the Chevy teams had issues. Callum Ilot's time got disallowed in after his first attempt. So there was a lot of issues with McLaren there for a bit. But then, they got it all figured out later on, and they made the Fast 12 with Rossi, Larson, and Ward there. But yeah, that was an issue. Honda just didn't have speed for the most part. Ganassi was struggling on speed. You had Rahal struggling for the second year in a row, and Marcus Ericsson, probably his car from practice crashed not the same, whether it was a backup car or not. They just did not have any pace at all, so that's probably factored into why they struggled so badly in qualifying this weekend, which, a big surprise there for a former winner just 2 years ago to be on the bubble like that. So yeah, there was a lot of issues there drama-wise. The Saturday definitely had its ups and downs for everybody, but obviously Penske was the ones that had the speed and everything. So yeah, there was a lot of drama, as we come to expect in the 500 qualifying. So yeah, very entertaining throughout. Very impressed by what Kyle Larson was able to do this qualifying session. I was very, very nervous for that first qualifying run, seeing how he would do, but he was able to adapt and everything, and then hold on to the car, and it shows how talented he is. But it's also a pretty well built car by McLaren there for him to be able to go and pull off that run there. So yeah, Penske up front, because of the push rods, which apparently they've been using for a while, and the other teams, or most of the other teams, were using an older version that's now out of date, which, I mean, from the sentiment that I've gotten, it's not necessarily that they outright cheated again or anything like that, but it's just bad optics, considering what went on at St. Petersburg and Long Beach for that team, and then to come out here and sweep the front row with the series owner owning the track and the team does look very suspect. And they've been fast, not only in qualifying, but they've been also pretty quick in race trim as well. So yeah, there's a lot there for Penske that we're gonna have to consider in this race, but it's I think it's just bad optics for the most part. But it does make for an interesting storyline going into Sunday's 500. So yeah, not surprised at all by who was on the bubble for Sunday for making the race. Yeah, I kind of figured that Nolan Siegel would be on the bubble there, but I didn't expect him to struggle like he did. Graham Rahal, I mean, clearly something's wrong at RLL for their cars to be that bad again for a second year in a row there. And then I think Ericsson, of course, just struggled from the get-go, and it was almost interesting how he pulled off Mark Martin there, almost with lifting, going to the white flag and thinking that his run was over. So huge miscommunication there by him and his team to not have that information for him and everything. So yeah, that was a interesting session there, but no doubt that he was able to make it in at the end, and then that put Nolan Siegel on the bubble, and of course he went out in style there, giving it his all, and going into the wall. So got to give the kid there credit for trying and being able to give it his all and not lift, because he definitely did not lift there coming out of turn one, where he hit the wall and then ended up back into the fence there. So Yeah, it was definitely an entertaining 2 days of qualifying for sure. And of course, we get to see I mean, regardless if it's Penske car or not, we get to see the fastest qualifying speed in the history of the race. So, yeah, it was definitely a lot that happened. And, it's definitely, the most entertaining qualifying session that you can have in motorsports. So, I think they do a good job with the format and being able to make it entertaining for the fans, and also puts on the stress and drama for all the teams and all the drivers. So now, of course, 500 on Sunday. So looking forward to seeing the rest of the week and seeing how the qualifying speed, how does it translate into the race speed.
Yeah, they had practice earlier today for a couple of hours. We can get into those later on during the preview itself. You mentioned the point of Graham Rahal and our team ALL, as the great Lee Diffie would say, 2 years in a row being in the position to possibly go home. Nolan Siegel, who looks like Gilbert Gottfried, basically standing on his head after wrecking in practice earlier in the week, taking a backup car, which was definitely not ideal, and trying to keep on forcing the issue, trying to make the time up that he had, not just losing the time on track, but also that speed to go and possibly backdoor his way into the Indy 500, akin to what Jack Harvey did last year to knock out his buddy Graham Rahal and teammate at that time out of the race. Marcus Ericsson, the one picture of him and how pasty white he looked, like he was basically sheet white, might be as good of a photo of what Indy qualifying can do to you, especially if you're on that last row shootout. The last row shootout at the end of the day probably needs to be adjusted. They give opportunities for the other teams that are in the Fast 12 and all to cool the car and do different methods to like turbo cool the car, while they tell the last row shootout people, oh, you can't cool your car or use any different methods. You have just an hour. You get one run guaranteed. After that one run, you have to basically have heat soak. And I don't think that's, I mean, granted, it's already, they're up against it anyway. You should allow them to do whatever they need to go and put up the best time. Now, granted, there's no incentive after you've run that first time, as long as you're locked in, to go back out again. That also, I mean, at that point, why is it an hour thing? You're basically, all the drama is, you're just adding melodrama to something that's already horrendous to go through. Especially for somebody, I mean, whatever you want to think about Graham Rahal, that organization really needs to look at how they do things, because their engineering group was effing up. He drove out on the racetrack with a loose wheel. So can you imagine if he goes and fences it in practice? There's no way they're coming back from that. He would have went home, because they're not building a car, they don't have a T car ready to go and put it in the show in 3 hours. That would be able to run a speed. It's crazy to me how Takuma Sato, you get Takuma Sato back in the fold. His car is a one-off and is in the Fast 12. And then your three regular cars are 33rd, 30th, and like 27th. I mean, that's ridiculous. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. And it shows just a general lack of what, I mean, there's no direction there. How does I get it, Takuma Sato knows how to drive Indy. I get that Takuma Sato is a two-time Indy 500 champion. He's not known as some amazing qualifier. number one. I don't think in either of his races did he qualify in the first 3 rows, I don't believe. Or maybe he was 10th the one time, but like he wasn't like super up front. But his car is 3 miles an hour faster than all the regular cars. That just makes no sense whatsoever. Unless there is like something fundamentally wrong with their, their scales or whatever it is. I don't know. It's inexplicable to me. And when Graham Rahal basically owns the team and he's got the shittiest car, that's also a really bad look. It almost gives credence to why he left. He drove for Newman Haas, and then he ended up driving for Ganassi before he ended up coming back to his family team. They're not the same group that they were back in the heyday when they were winning Indy 500s with Buddy Rice and have Kenny Breck get back into a car and et cetera, and Miss Hummer going and finishing in the top 5 and stuff like that. But I mean, that the story of Honda struggling but in qualifying, but you have the likes of Alex Palou, who was the qualifying, who until yesterday was the record holder, I think, for 1 and 4 laps. But now he's going to start 13th. You have Colton Herta, who's one of the fastest race cars. Now, if he can make sure that he keeps it under him during carb day practice, then he probably has a pretty good shot of having an opportunity because the Indy 500 has definitely been rough on Colton Herta. So we'll see if he's able to respond. The Andretti teammates, I mean, you had Kyle Kirkwood make the Fast 12, as I mentioned. He seems to have really figured things out there. Yes, he had the big wreck late in the race last year, but there's a reason why he's won in every level of the Indy car, the ladder, the road to Indy. I think that car is one that we have to watch. I mean, there's plenty of Hondas we have to watch going into race day, but we'll talk about it more. Larson, I mentioned, 3 on a worst starting spot for Scott Dixon in his Indy 500 career. So we'll go through the rest of the field, my bad with Palou. I said, so Herta beat Palou by 0.010 of a mile an hour. Herta, Palou, Ilott, after the issues that Ilott had earlier on the Saturday. Marcus Armstrong, Ed Carpenter, and Kiffin Simpson qualify on row 6. Row 7, Marco Andretti, Elio Castro-Neves, and Scott Dixon. So probably the most experienced row in the whole entire field. Agustin Canapino, who had 2 laps or 2.5 laps where it was looking like he was going to get in the Fast 12, and then had one of the plenum events, leaving him in 22nd. Stingray Robb, who was my pick to go home, but should have known better because it's a Foyt car. And then Christian Rasmussen there for row 8. Row 9, Tom Blomqvist, Roman Grosjean, who wanted to go back out on Saturday to move up, and then Linus Lundqvist. I mentioned I got the positions wrong. By 1 there. Lundgaard was 28th. Connor Daly, 29th. He had a plenum issue. And then Pietro Fittipaldi, 30th. Catherine Legg, looking sexy, and but definitely having one of the sketchiest cars in qualifying trim. Hit the fence on her initial qualifying run. Had plenty of moments in the last chance shootout to possibly put it in the wall. But she made the show. She was the fastest of the group there. Marcus Ericsson, after backing off, doing the Mark Martin, as Josh said, somehow, I don't know how he miscounted that and then decided to back off. Gave Nolan Siegel a glimmer of hope, but then when he went back out, was able to go and pass Graham Rahal by a slight margin. What is it? Basically 300ths of a second there over 4 laps. And as I mentioned, Graham Rahal will start tailback. They'll have that last row party, and Graham Rahal gets to go and get 33 cents or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, that's the qualifying field for this year's Indianapolis 500. Nolan Siegel going home. It would be pretty cool if Nolan Siegel could have been racing in the Freedom 100, but they don't have it anymore for whatever reason. Part of the bright ideas that Penske has with the IndyCar. But we'll get into it more, the preview, the Indianapolis 500 later, for sure. All right, move on to the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, second year of the All-Star race, going to the old fabled racetrack, reopening the track in the process after it being laying dormant since 1996. So thanks Dale Jr. Essentially for that. The All-Star race, we had the alternate soft compound tire making a debut. You had a lot of other characteristics and factors going on. You had the pit crew challenge, which gave Christopher Bell the number 1 pit stall. That team, I'm trying to remember, I think they were probably they were the 54 team, I think, for a good amount of last year. But because the 20 car was having so many problems on pit road, they went and changed to them. But now this year they're having issues. But they didn't have issues on Saturday or on Friday. Yeah, was it Friday? Yeah, it was Friday. To go and get that pit crew challenge win. But they didn't have the heat races because of the apocalyptic rain. You had what's it called? I'm trying to look for the race results. So I mean, the race results, Logano started on pole and led all but 1 lap. Dennis Hamlin was second, who was my pick in the one pick'em league I was playing, hoping to get some bonus points. Christopher Buescher third, Kyle Larson fourth, Ryan Blaney fifth, giving Ford 3 of the top 5. Darrell Wallace Jr. Giving us quite a view on his body camera of the great fans that showed up at North Wilkesboro. Getting out of the open and almost going a lap down, and then coming back to finish 6th. Ross Chastain was 7th. William Clyde Elliott the second was 8th. Michael McDowell 9th, who had at one point fell a lap down, and then Kyle Busch, who finished 10th in the race, but definitely was number 2 after the fight or the altercation that he had with Richard, Ricky Stenhouse and Busch. It was early in the race. It was literally lap 2, I think, of the race. Stenhouse had passed him, made it 3 wide. He was in the middle of a 3 wide, passed him cleanly. Kyle Busch decided in his warped mind that Ricky Stenhouse hit him to put him in the wall. He did hit him on the way. I guess he got him on the front corner there, on the nose or on the left front corner there. But Kyle Busch decided to go and have road rage and destroy Ricky Stenhouse's race car, the Icy Hot sponsorship. Plenty of puns you can have with that because of Shaq. Ricky Stenhouse going and making a reference to Richard Childress holding his watch back in the day, which was also involving Kyle Busch. Ricky Stenhouse having to wait the whole entire night to get out of the racetrack, but before he was having to wait the whole entire night, he went and stood on the rollback over there at the A team for Kyle Busch, proceeded to try to have a conversation with him. Kyle Busch, being Kyle Busch, decided to be a dick and got nailed in the face in the process. But thanks to his group of Roid Rage pit crew members, that basically de-escalated what probably could have been a really funny fight. But Stenhouse nailed him. And then Kyle Busch even had the audacity to say, "I suck just like you," basically shitting on his own team and shitting on himself because of how bad RCR has been for a year now, since they were getting on almost nearly a year since his last win, which was at Gateway. And then after that Gateway win, they basically went down the toilet and haven't really responded since. So, yeah, I mean, that's the major storyline. I mean, Joey Logano dominated the race, qualified on pole, had tested at North Wilkesboro with the tires, so definitely an advantage that way. But just like the Indy 500 qualifying, Josh, there's plenty of things to hit there. Logano finally getting some momentum, being able to go out there and get a victory, get what has been a rough start to the season, kind of maybe turn it around to start the second half. Penske's and Ford in general having speed, it seems, over these last few weeks, continuing. I mean, the biggest thing that it was on Pat McAfee's show, was probably on SportsCenter and everywhere on social media. Bob Hockris and Davey Siegel were collateral damage in that scuffle. The altercation that took place between Richard and Kyle Busch is the biggest storyline that really came out of a race that was relatively interesting behind Joey Logano.
Yeah, I mean, first with Joey Logano there dominating the race, it should also be mentioned that they were a part of the tire test for North Wilkesboro, and they had like some 800 laps of tire testing there, so that definitely helped them, and that's part of why they are so dominant there. So it's definitely a factor when you consider how much time they had for tire testing, and of course tie it back into the Penske domination at Indy. I mean, Alexander Rossi must really be punching air right now, seeing Penske just dominate in their two series that they competed in North America. So the lots of punching going on for sure with Ricky Stenhouse on Kyle Busch. But I mean, the racing itself it was fine. It's not like a great race overall, and I think for All-Star racing, I mean, it was pretty decent considering the history of the All-Star race. There really hasn't been a thoroughly entertaining All-Star race like from flag to flag since probably 2010 or something like that. And there's been maybe a few here and there that were kind of good, but for the most part, since 2010 or so, maybe even earlier, it really hasn't been very much to write home about for the All-Star race, changing venues and all that. So this was pretty decent, and I think the racing was fine. There's racing throughout the field. Obviously, we saw Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher go at it throughout the final run there, and they brought in Ryan Blaney there. There was a little bit of racing up front, after the first couple of yellows. We saw Chris Bell go at it, Denny Hamlin go at trying to overtake Denny Hamlin there, and Brad Keselowski ended up being the only one to lead a lap, and that was under caution, but otherwise under green it was all Joey Logano there. So there was still racing throughout the field. It was just not really up front, and Denny Hamlin tried to get to Joey there at the end, but they're both running the high line. Everybody was on the option tire at the end, so there wasn't really much of a difference there. So that's what you're going to see when everyone's on the same tire. It's basically the same type of race that we've been seeing because no one's doing anything different there. So there's lots of things that we can look at for this. I think the option tire, I think it's a good idea, and hopefully they implement that on other short track races going throughout, which this is actually not the first time they tried an option tire. I think did they try? Pretty sure they tried an option tire like back in like 2016 or something with the All-Star race at Charlotte, but nothing ever materialized from that. But there was that option that they had, and it was interesting that everybody had to start on the option tire, whereas like in IndyCar, you have the option to, and I think even in F1, maybe you have the option to choose the tire that you start on. Anybody can start, so if you want to start in the reds, you got to start in the reds, but that's your only set of tires there. So, I think, having multiple sets of option tires for NASCAR, I'm not sure if, that's the right idea or not. Maybe, probably more than one considering the length of races, but, I think for the option tire, it was generally a good idea. It's just that it's a repave. And then also, I think you're probably going to get more effectiveness from it during the daytime versus running at night when everything's cool, like we talked about, because we heard Denny Hamlin talk about how it was great during the daytime, but then during the nighttime, not so much. So, there's definitely some consideration to make, but I think that's a good idea, and hopefully they pursue that more. So, considering all the things, it wasn't that bad of a race, so which we've seen worse. And of course there was action, of course, throughout, of course, with Kyle Busch causing basically all of the accidents there, because he started the first one because he got into the wall. Ricky Stenhouse went for a gap and took it, which didn't really make any contact, but definitely forced the issue there and caught Kyle Busch off guard there, and Kyle took exception to it very much and got him in turn 1 and 2 and wrecked him pretty hard. So, of course, the fight afterwards, and then later on the race, he spun out Ty Gibbs there. So Kyle Busch, and a lot of the incidents throughout the night there, and then I think the fight itself. Ricky Stenhouse. He's a guy that works out. He does CrossFit and all that stuff. So that one, he's not a guy that you want to mess with, I think. Considering his stature, even though Kyle Busch is a taller guy and all that, well, don't want to have Ricky Stenhouse coming after you. And he had to back up everything that he was saying, because pretty much made it clear that he was going to come after him after the race. And then, I think he was running out of time to get that punch in, and that's why Kyle Busch was like, whatever, I forgot what exactly he said, but what before he got punched. But basically, Ricky Stenhouse is like, I don't like what you're saying, and said go back and watch the tape, and went for the right hook in the face there. So, which I think actually looking back at it at first, it did connect. So that punch did connect there, and then took him down there, and then Stenhouse's dad jumped in there to try to hold him back, Kyle Busch back, and he landed on top of Davey Siegel there. Bob Pockris was in the middle of it, which not the first fight he's been in the middle of. Remember Keselowski and Jeff Gordon back at Texas in 2014. So Bob has a penchant for getting in the middle of it. So, but he produces the content for us. So that was pretty wild there. So, yeah, I think Dale Jr. was saying afterwards. He said we should just lock them all in on the inside of the tracks after the race, because I think that's what helped steer the anger, is that he couldn't leave the track, and so he had to wait. And he was waiting there at the hauler, at Austin Dillon's hauler for Ricky Stenhouse, which I saw the meme online from GTA San Andreas, like, oh shit, here we go again, and everything. So that was a good meme there. But Stenhouse, he's not taking exception to Kyle Busch, and it's probably the first time we've ever seen Kyle Busch be the one that got punched in the face after the race. And it's pretty ironic considering he's the guy that RCR said hold my watch and everything, and then later down the line when he was driving for Joe Gibbs, came after Joey Logano one time at Las Vegas. So Kyle Busch on the receiving end of the punch this time. So definitely a lot of things that happened in this race, but yeah, I think that was probably the most entertaining part. And now it leads into Coca-Cola 600 with a lot of storylines there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of anything that involves Richard, kind of it goes back all these years, and the fact that they've had a beef for years that nobody really knew about, or at least what it is I think because of Kyle Busch and who he is and what he's about. He's a great race car driver. He's one of the most talented race car drivers I've ever seen. But he has a fundamental defect when it comes to dealing with people, and he talks a lot, which back in when he was at Gibbs for all those years was worthwhile because he was winning. Now that he's in a mid team or mid driver, mid team, whatever, and you're cherry picking truck races and Xfinity races to run so you can actually win a race, it rings hollow. And I mean, yesterday he was completely out of control. He looked like Kevin Magnussen out there, or Lance Stroll or something, driving around. And I reference Lance Stroll. We'll talk about it here in the San Marino Grand Prix thing, but rocket-powered Mohawks video on Lance Stroll, hilarious. Not only hilarious, very informative to show how bad that dude has been forever. But Kyle Busch, for whatever reason, was on one yesterday, his time of the month, whatever it might have been. But in the end, he got baptized by Richard, and Richard even said that he's going to go out and wreck him. So now we get something to look forward to during the 600 if they're around each other, which when these kind of things happen in racing, they always seem to find each other. So we'll see how that all works out come next Sunday, weather permitting, at the Coca-Cola 600. So gonna go move on to the Truck Series race, which, I mean, it's becoming kind of similar to what we see in Formula One. It's not as jarring because in NASCAR it's harder to be that dominant, but there were a lot of people that scored stage points, but in the grand scheme, when you look at the top 5 results, or the top 7, not a whole lot of stage points. Corey Heim goes out there, leads the last 65 laps or whatever of the race to get his third win of 2024. Grennan Finger finished second. Lane Riggs gets his best career Truck Series finish in third. Brendan Butterbean Queen driving the 1 for Tricon gets a 4th place finish. And then Sammy Smith driving for Spire in the 7 finished 5th. I'd say Brendan Queen 4th, my 5th. Christian Eckes was on pole based on the metric. Finished 6th. Nick Sanchez started on the outside pole, finished 7th. Ankrum, Michael Waltrip's Obsession, and Stuball rounded out the top 10. Ty Majeski won stage 1, but then struggled to get back up there. Tyler Ankrum won stage 2. You had basically 5 drivers that led the majority of the race. You had Jake Garcia, who had a run leading 40 laps. So, I mean, you got Thor Sport up there having a chance to win, which is something we don't really say these days anymore. Garcia finally showing up after what has been a very quiet start to the year. Majeski's been consistent. He probably lost track position there, and that was part of his inability to get back up there because of the speeds and all. But I mean, when we look at this race, I mean, you got Connor Jones bitching and moaning because he didn't have power steering. That's funny, and the comments that his crew had. But Corey Heim is basically getting ready for whether it's Cup next year or Xfinity. This is going to be the last season for him in a truck. And I think he's trying to put it out of reach. He's trying to give himself so much of a cushion that he could basically coast into Phoenix, which for whatever reason is going to continue hosting the championship event into 2025. Said, and with nobody excited about it, but Corey Heim is one of the best young talents in the sport, and he proves it every week. And this was yet the latest example of that. He didn't have the ideal track position or whatever, but he was able to get that victory and solidify his points lead, Josh, as they move, closer and closer to the playoffs, since the playoffs for the Truck Series aren't that far away. They're going to start in, I think, August, early August, or after the Olympic break there. So we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, I don't know what else we can say about Corey Heim, Josh. He's been the best driver in this series the last year plus. Even with a team change, he's proving why Toyota has so much invested in him.
Yeah, Corey Heim, obviously one of the best drivers in the Truck Series, maybe the best driver actually. But I mean, for him, like we talked about a couple weeks ago on this show, like he has to be able to win a ton of races and be able to go out there and win races and build his point position for the playoffs and get that advantage, possible regular season championship, and it all adds up and it helps him stay above the cut line, which helps him. I mean, he can be relaxed and fall back on that, but it also allows you to be able to kind of stay calm throughout that situation and all those scenarios that he'll face later on, and they can kind of take risks and stuff, knowing that can happen, that where they can continue to build on that and allow them to be in as stress free of a scenario as they can until Phoenix. So obviously we'll see what happens, but he's one of the best drivers in the series right now, and he's already had his Cup Series debut, filling in for Eric Jones when Eric Jones was injured after Talladega, so we saw what he can do kind of in the Truck Series and now in the Cup Series. So he's on his way to possibly being in a Toyota ride, whether that's in Xfinity, where he's gotten some looks there already with Sam Hunt Racing, but he's probably going to be in the Cup Series sooner rather than later, and we'll see where he can go. If 2311 decides to expand or something like that, or Legacy decides to expand, there could be an option for him there, or possibly taking over one of the drivers there for Legacy. But he's been one of the best drivers, and the only thing remaining is his maturity, which I think he's shown a great deal of maturity this year with how he's performed. Definitely something that he had to clean up after what took place back at Phoenix back in the fall. So I think it's definitely something that as we progress throughout the summer, we're going to see him continue to win races. So really looking forward to seeing how he is able to perform in the playoffs, and if he can make it to Iowa. But I think there are other drivers here. We talked about, or previewed and talked about with guys that haven't run well, guys that are making their debuts. Lane Riggs fought hard, started 23rd and finished 3rd. So great run for a guy that really needed it after having a ton of bad luck to start the year. Went out and got a top 3 finish there, fighting against Grant Enfinger, Truck Series veteran, of course, Brendan Butterbean Queen, making his debut. Somebody that's a short track veteran on the Cars Tour. So those two guys, Brendan Queen and Lane Riggs, definitely had good runs, and expect to see Brendan Queen go out there and maybe get more opportunities in the Truck Series. So, and possibly Xfinity rides. So those two guys, I think, really stood out to me. Of course, of course, we had the regulars in this series like Christian Eckes lead laps, Ty Majeski led laps, and even Jake Garcia led laps. So this field, we're seeing good talent, finally kind of come through here, and seeing good drivers come from the short track background and make it up into the Truck Series. So we'll see, if these guys like Lane Riggs, if he can make something of it, if he can build on this run and put together some solid finishes coming up in this season, and hopefully Brandon Queen's able to pick up more opportunities here in the Truck Series, and eventually graduate on from the car store. So this race, with being at North Wilkesboro, gives the perfect opportunity for guys like that to make their runs, make their debuts, and show these fans and the people watching what exactly that they're made out of,
and show the skill that it takes to race those cars, and no pun intended, and being able to manage tires, showing that there is talent, and if you don't have to go and buy your way in, if you give them an opportunity, they'll go out and show out. And those are two examples of that in Queen and Riggs. Josh Berry, of course, being probably the best example of it. I've seen, and then these days now you have Carson Quapple benefiting from juniors having a team, of course, in the Xfinity Series, along with being in the Cars Tour. 6 races to go in their regular season. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 6 races to go in the regular season. There will be back there racing. This is they're in the middle of 5 consecutive weeks of racing. Race at Charlotte, then going to Gateway. Then they will have 4 out of the next 5 weeks off, with the race at Nashville in there. Then they'll have a back-to-back Pocono and IRP. and another 2 weeks off before they go to Richmond for the regular season finale. So still got some time, 6 races, but that'll come up quick with the amount of time they have off. In terms of the drivers' standings, and we mentioned Christian Eckes, Josh, and he is still the overall points leader, only by 4 points. They've won 5 of the 10 races between them. Nick Sanchez and Rajah Caruth, of course, being the other regulars with a win. I go over here. Yeah, Kyle Busch has 2, and then Ross Chastain has the one from Darlington last week. So, in terms of those are the top 2 in points. They have a 60-point lead on, or 60 and 64-point lead, respectively, on Ty Majeski, who's in third, 2 points at Nick Sanchez. Then Taylor Gray is minus 98 from the leader, essentially on his own. Tyler Ankrum, Caruth, Enfinger, Ben Rhodes, a defending series champion, and Tanner Gray rounding out the top 10. Basically, from Enfinger to Crafton is only separated by 6 points. That is an interesting battle amongst guys who used to be teammates. And so there's 4 for 3 at the moment, points-wise. You have the likes of Lane Riggs, who's 17th in points. You have Stu Ball, who has won races at some point in his career. Bailey Curry, who hasn't been god-awful, driving for Nice Motorsports. Yeah, Purdy, who drives for Spire. Ty Dillon, who's basically right there, I think, right on the edge. I mean, Timmy Hill, I think, is basically that cutoff of the drivers that realistically are playoff capable. But it'll take a lot for those guys to get there. So, I mean, as things stand, I mean, I'd probably count Lane Riggs, really. I think that's a real cutoff. And then you have a few more kind of stragglers there, points-wise. But we'll see how that all shapes up as the next few races go by. The Formula One San Marino Grand Prix took place Sunday, and of course, Fish Lips won. However, it wasn't the usual runaway for him to get that victory there. Won by less than a second. Lando Norris got into the DRS, was catching Verstappen, and then because of that aero wash and turbulence, it affected his ability to go and move really much further. But coming off of his first career Formula One win at Miami, Lando Norris goes out there and gets a second place finish. Charles Leclerc finishes third, so the Tifosi leave happy because a Ferrari got on the podium. Oscar Piastri, who qualified second for the race, but then got 5 place grid drop for holding up Kevin Magnussen coming out of the Tamburello chicane in qualifying. And then the smooth operator was 5th. Lewis Hamilton 6th, Russell 7th, Sergio Perez 8th, Lance Stroll 9th, the last car in the lead lap. And then Yuki Tsunoda was a lap down, scoring the last point there. Hulkenberg, Magnussen just outside of the points. Ricciardo, Ocon, Zhou Guanyu, Pierre Gasly, Logan Sargent, Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso, all one lap down, and then Alex Albon, who just had a nightmare day at Imola. They had a loose wheel, which then led to a bunch of other different issues that eventually led to Williams retiring the car. But, I mean, for the last 2, maybe 3 years, really, Fish Lips has been the dominant presence in Formula One. And, 3 years plus, whatever, this year. But now McLaren, for the first time since, when Lewis Hamilton was around, are a factor. I mean, they've given up a lot of ground to start the year, but it seems like McLaren is the best team outside of Red Bull and is making Red Bull sweat in terms of their performance and capability. What do we make of the fact that Lando Norris has been able to beat Verstappen? Granted, certain things had to fall away, but he won a race and then comes back, backs it up with a second place finish. The other McLaren and Oscar Piastri finishes in fourth, but probably wanted more this weekend.
I think, starting off with Miami, backtracking to Miami, I think, winning there gives them confidence, for both Lando Norris and for McLaren, that they can build a car that can challenge Red Bull for race victories. And now fast forwarding back to the Imola San Marino Grand Prix for Verstappen, I mean, he still won, but we saw that he was struggling on the hard tires at the end, and we saw that for Lando Norris, even though he had 5 laps already on his tires, he was still pressing at the end and pushing for that race victory, which would have been 2 in a row for McLaren. So gives them the victory that they had previously, gives them confidence to go out and build better cars and continue to challenge Red Bull there. So for Lando, obviously able to get up and close the gap on Verstappen there at the end, which made it a little bit interesting, being several tenths faster than Verstappen. Although once he started to get in a little bit closer, within 2 seconds, it started to get harder to get up to him, of course, and he was able to get within a second, but was never close enough where he could get DRS and get an advantage there to take the lead possibly for Lando. So very close here for Lando and for McLaren. So the opportunity is there. I think Red Bull not as invincible as what we would have thought of a couple weeks ago, leading into Miami. I think we still pick Max Verstappen to win every race, but maybe there's going to be a time this year where that might not be the case, and we're not as confident in saying who's going to win in or finish in F1 behind Fish Lips. Maybe it'll be Lando Norris a couple of times that we'll have to actually pick him, but it'll be interesting to see how they qualify and how they perform in Monaco, because we know Monaco is a very track position racetrack, and we know that whoever qualifies on pole more than likely will probably win the race unless something horrible goes wrong, like we've seen before, carbon copy on Charles Leclerc there, but that's a very unlikely, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, this Grand Prix, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to it, but at least at the end, Lando was able to make him push for the win there. So at least that was somewhat interesting there. But I think his teammate Oscar Piastri had pace, qualified well, and then held up in traffic, of course, because of the penalty that he had for Magnussen. And then on the flip side, going back to Verstappen, of course, had the huge toe to be able to get to the pole. And if he didn't have that, does he actually qualify on the pole? I think that's something you have to consider. And if he didn't qualify on the pole for this race, could we have seen? I mean, I think maybe it would have been possible that we'd seen a different winner. And I think based on how he performed, Lando was kind of behind him for the first couple of first quarter of the race, and then built some distance. But then Lando was able to charge at the very end. So I think Red Bull might be starting to be a little bit more vulnerable, but we'll see until they get upgrades for later in the year. So we'll see if that happens. But it's starting to get a little bit more interesting, I guess, in terms of competition here this season in Formula One.
Yeah, and I mean, with Monaco coming up this weekend, will that expose the Red Bull car with their kind of some of their issues that they have with street circuits, perhaps? Can McLaren utilize their advantage that they seem to have with this new upgrade package to possibly get track position in qualifying, which is what really the race is. The race is won on Saturday as much as any race that there is. So we'll see what happens at Monaco. Yeah, for the one. The points, drivers' standings, Max Verstappen leading by 48 points over Leclerc. Leclerc has a 6-point lead on Perez and a 12-point lead on Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz is 20 points behind Leclerc, so that's a good battle between second through fifth. Oscar Piastri in sixth, ahead of Glassjaw by 9 points, and then 18 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who is 2 points ahead of Fernando Alonso. And then Yuki Tsunoda rounding out the top 10. The constructors standings, Red Bull up by 56 over Ferrari. 46 and 58 points between Ferrari and McLaren. 75. Yeah, 75 points between McLaren and Mercedes factory. Then 35 points between Mercedes and Aston Martin, and then Red Bull or RB. The last team in double-digit points at the moment, Williams and Kick Sauber, are the only teams that haven't scored a point so far in 2024. All right, so yeah, I mean, we mentioned, there was Ferrari issues with their strategy. What a shocker. Hopefully that'll change once Lewis goes over there. Lewis was able to make something out of the day and finish in the top 6, giving them an opportunity going into next week without any damage, without any major issues going on there. GSP roundup time. This past weekend was at Imola. The sprint race winner, Oliver Goeth, the German driver for Campos Racing. That's not what I want. I keep on doing that. Yeah, Oliver Goeth, and he was the fastest in practice, and he won the sprint race. In the sprint race, over Tramnitz and Leon Bogdanovic and Dean Scusa or something. Gabriele Mini, Lawrence Van Hopen, Arvin Lindblad, Bedrin, and Ramos rounding out the top 10. And then trying to see where, Easterson was in 18th for that race. So not amazing. The feature race results. I'm not even going to try that. Maggie Tonif or whatever over Goth and Fornaroli, Browning, Bogdanovic, Mini, Lindblad, Ramos, and Boya. Sebastian Montoya was 10th. And Easterson was 21st in the race. So opportunity to go to Monaco and race everything. Fornaroli leads by 3 points over Browning, 7 points over Bogdanovic and Mini. Goth with this solid weekend, 30-point weekend, leapfrogs all the way up to 5th. Megatonev 6th, Lindblad, Tramnitz, Van Hopen, and Mansell. Sebastian Montoya 13th. Easterson has 5 points from the opening sprint round. Trying to see where, so that's Formula 3 heading to Monaco. In Formula 2, Franco Colapinto gets the victory in the sprint race over Paul Aaron, Zane Maloney, Amory Cordial, Ollie Bierman, Bortoletto, Vishore, Miney, Zach O'Sullivan, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, rounding out the top 10. Jack Crawford was 14th, Juan Manuel Correa was 15th. Let's see, so then the feature race results, Isaac Hadjar gets the victory over Bortoletto, Dirksen, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Franco Colapinto, Paul Aaron, Jack Crawford, Juan Manuel Correa, Victor Martins, and Richard Vachur rounding out the top 10. The standings heading into Monaco, Zane Maloney has had only 21 points in the last 4 rounds. Goes and takes a 5-point lead going to Monaco over Paul Aaron, then 9 points on Isaac Hadjar. So it's really a 3-horse race. Hadjar winning the last 2 feature races heading into Monaco. Kushamini is 8th. Enzo Fittipaldi 9th. Jack Crawford in 10th. Juan Manuel Correa is next to last in terms of points in Formula 2. The next piece will be Supercars at the Perth Super Sprint. I know Chaz Mostert won one of the races there this past weekend at giving Ford a clean sweep of the weekend because Mostert won race 1, Cam Waters won race 2 there. Still in terms of the points, they're trying to get the driver standings. So Will Brown leads the points over Brock Feeney. Mostert moves up to 3rd. Cam Waters moves up to 4th, and I think they got Matthew Payne rounding out the top 5. The 2 Shell V-Power Dick Johnson cars are right in the heart of it, in the back end of the top 10. Richie Stanaway and Thomas Randall. Okay, let us go and move that and go through that. The NHRA Route 66 Nationals. There was a milestone victory for Antron Brown winning his 75th Top Fuel race, which is insane. Matt Hagan, after winning number 50 a couple weeks ago, now is won his 51st. So yeah, you got that. Dallas Glenn in Pro Stock, and Gage Herrera gets yet another Pro Stock motorcycle victory. Langdon, Lenny Carman, his first 2-time winner this year, beating John Force. Charles 50, so number 51. John Force, second final round appearance of 24. Then you have Dallas Glenn racing against Aaron Stanfield. Secondary victory facility. Defeat Aaron Stanfield championship run. Glenn moves into the points lead. Stanfield advances. Pro Stock Motorcycle is another 8th straight race to tied Dave Schultz for the most consecutive wins in class history. Herrera went 671 with a 3,200.68 to hold off Chase Van Zandt in regards to trying to have a perfect season. So Herrera knows 11 straight number 1 snapped by Matt Smith. So that's where we're at with the NHRA. MotoGP and Moto2 will be going to I'm forgetting where MotoGP and Moto2 will be going. Marino and BMW. They'll be going to Catalunya for the Catalan Grand Prix. So So for Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya will have a bunch of descendants down that path. So MotoGP, Moto2, getting a Moto2 with Joe Roberts. Joe Roberts was leading the points, but now he's just making sure, so he's just staying with it. Oh God, there. Standings. That's Pramac. That's just for MotoGP. Moto2, Sergio Garcia up by 7 over Joe Roberts. Aldeguer and Ogura lurking behind. 26 items there. So Garcia, Roberts, Aldeguer, Ogura, Alonso, Lopez rounding out your top 5. In MotoGP, Jorge Martin is 38 points out of Pecco Bagnaia. 8. It's 9 and 29, yeah, 38. And then there's 2 points between Bagnaia and Marquez, and Bastianini. Then Maverick Vinales, Pedro Acosta, Brad Binder, Espargaro, Alicia Espargaro, and Fabio Di Gianantonio, rounding out the top 10. And then Formula E in Shanghai. Going over there on their site to get the results. So from the last round, the doubleheader at Berlin, might be some lingering issues, but the point standings heading into this weekend's events at Shanghai, Nick Cassidy winning the event by 6, finishing the Nick Cassidy in his last 4 races are third, second, first, second to go and make a 16-point lead over Pascal Wehrlein. Oliver Rowland 22 points behind in third. Those are really the guys that are in it, unless defending world champion Jake Dennis can have a big weekend. He's 38 points behind Nick Cassidy at the moment. So we'll see how that all works out. And what we're supposed to think accordingly. Let's move on to Monaco Grand Prix, one of the most historic circuits, one of the most historic races, the first leg of the greatest day in motorsports. So, Josh, let us know what you're thinking in regards to the Monaco Grand Prix and your picks as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's going to be, an interesting race, but like kind of hinted and alluded to earlier, I mean, I think it's still going to be Max Verstappen and Red Bull still coming out with the victory there. But, behind them, Ferrari, this is a race that they really want to win as well. You've seen them, especially with Charles Leclerc, win the pole and then have disaster happen on race day and be forced not to contend for the victory there. So, I think it's ultimately going to be Max Verstappen, and I think McLaren with what they've been able to do. McLaren, they could challenge for possibly a possible podium on here for Monaco, which I think definitely would be a good result for them, considering where they've been the last couple of weeks. So definitely think Lando Norris can get it done. I think Lando's definitely somebody who probably needs a podium here at this circuit, and definitely needs to press Max Verstappen and continue to prove that they're not just a one-time deal or one-time thing, that they're going to consistently challenge Red Bull for race wins. So I think for me, Red Bull with Max Verstappen wins, and then behind him, I'm gonna say Lando Norris and then Charles Leclerc take podium. So write that down real quick. Max, Lando, and Charles E. Claire. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting race, but I think we'll find more what we'll know about it in qualifying rather than on race day. So, and we can talk more about Monaco here. I mean, it's going to be interesting with some other back markers and stuff. Logan Sargent continuing to be under threat with how they're treating him. With same with Dan Ricciardo at RB. How much longer will he last? But everything, and then I think Mercedes not as bad there, but one last chance for Lewis Hamilton to put up a decent result with Mercedes in in that car. So going to Ferrari next year. So that's what I think. This race. I mean, it's obviously we know it's going to be processional, but it's a good way to warm up. Starting off the day with the first leg of the greatest day in motorsports for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good way to build into the day. The main event, of course, in theory, is the one in the middle, but you start off with Monaco, history, provenance, the whole 9 yards. Keep on doing that. And I heard, fish lips with Lando and Eclair, which is last week was the podium exactly. For me, I'm going to go a little different here. I'm going to go maybe get a little wild with the result because, of course, as you mentioned, there is opportunity there at Monaco if you can qualify well and to go and basically dictate the race. And based on that, I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri. I'm going to say there's going to be an upset and Oscar Piastri gets his first Formula One win at Monaco. I will then say that Fish Lips finishes second. And in third will be Charles Leclerc. So we agree on the third place finisher. So I'm gonna go Oscar Piastri wins first career race. Wins first F1, his first F1 race. Fish Lips, and then Eclair are my picks for this weekend. I think qualifying is going to be very interesting, and that's really what the whole show is about. So definitely tune in Saturday because that'll be more interesting than what we see on Sunday. Okay, so we move from Monaco to NASCAR, and they will be at Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend. We start with Friday night, the North Carolina Education Lottery. 238 trucks for 36 spots. The entry list there, Brett Moffitt driving in the 1 this week, Connor Mozak in the 7 for Spire, Jennifer Jo Cobb probably going home, Memphis Villarreal, who's a field filler, driving for Youngs. Keith McGee driving for Reum. And go through all these other. Caden Honeycutt in a 45 truck. Jeffrey Earnhardt driving for MBM, trying to make the show. The Floridian Motorsports team with Mason Maggio. So there's a couple of teams that are trying to make it on their first attempt or one of their first attempts. You got Stephen Parsons racing for the Henderson Motorsports team. Justin Carroll, another one. So, I mean, I picked trucks, or I picked the last week for trucks. So I'll cede to you first there, Josh, in regards to the truck series and who gets the win and who your wild card will be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just easy to go with the guy that's been good at this in this series, and Corey Heim. Just gonna pick him continuously, I guess, or as much as we can. And I think this is a good opportunity to show what not only are they good on the short tracks and other things, but they're really good at mile and a halves, and obviously there's lots of those left here in the truck series. So on the schedule, so I'll pick him to win the race on Friday night, and of course, wild card. Yeah, man, this is tough. There's a lot we can go here with the wild card. I'll go with this is tough. This is tough here for a wild card. I'll go with Connor Jones. How about Connor Jones? We'll see. It's really out there, but this might be 1 mile and a half. It's not that bad of a racetrack. We'll see.
You never know what can happen. So, I mean, Connor Jones, when he's not, yelling on the radio or being a bitch, has shown some semblance of talent. So then, of course, Sport signed him up last year. So they have some belief in his ability there. So we'll see what happens. But, of course, the Corey Heim pick, definite chalk, and makes the most sense. I think whoever picks first for the truck series, I think for the remainder of this season is just going to pick Corey Heim, just because. It's like 21 when whoever was picking first for Cup was picking Kyle Larson. For me, I am going to go with Christian Eckes because he's been the other big-time guy so far this season in trucks, and it would be a way for him to continue to maintain his points lead that way. My wild card selection for this weekend, I think I went and did this a couple of weeks ago. Oh no, I didn't do that. All right, so I will do it this time. I'm going to say Moffitt, the former Truck Series champion, former winner at this racetrack, I believe, or at least been on a 1.5 mile racetrack, has won for a couple of big teams. So he ran well in his most recent start. So why not? It's a wild card pick. He's not racing all year, so opportunity there, to say the least. An Xfinity Series Bet MGM 300 will have a few Cup guys in the race. 40 cars for 38 spots, so 2 cars will go home. If weather plays a part in it, I think the 2 people that would go home immediately would be Kyle Busch and Noah Gragson, because they don't have any points. But yeah, you have Cram driving the 4 as usually, Alfredo Smithley in the 6. What is it? Chase Elliott will be in the Hendrick 17. Taylor Gray in the 19 for Gibbs. Eric Almirillo in the 20. Dean Thompson making his Xfinity debut in the 26. You got Kyle Busch, as I mentioned, running a RCR third car. Akinori Ogata for Joey Gase Motorsports. D. Burrito announced that he'll be running the rest of the season. Got 74 is going to be Jade Buford driving that car for the rest of the season. You got Decker, Natalie Decker, going to be driving the 92 car, so that'll be awful. You got Emmerling and Yaley for SS Greenlight, and I mentioned Noah Gagson for Rhett Jones Racing and a Ford. So for me, I will. Obviously the bigger thing is to make the show, which is they have to make it on speed anyway. I'm going to go with Clyde. I could be missing out, but I'm going to go with Clyde here because the 17 has been fast in general. And so that gives them an advantage. And they have different races experience too. So I think that plays a part in all of this. Right now, driver point standings. So you have 16, 25 drivers that have run every race. If you count Dawson Cram, it'd be 26. He only has missed one race. So, so my wild card selection will be Ryan Sieg because they ran at Texas. He was like this close to the victory. Sam Mayer got him there. So can Ryan Sieg go out there and make his season? That's really the question there. He's not that far away from the cutoff. He's 21 points out of the top 10, and he's only 13 points out of the cutoff spot. So in good shape. No, I missed out on but so we'll see what happens with that. So you go and do that, and then NASCAR Xfinity at Charlotte. Phil goes with William Clyde Elliott II to win, and then Ryan Sieg as the wild card. How about you, Josh? Who do you see as your favorites to win and be a wild card for this weekend's Xfinity event?
I'm going to go with Justin Allgaier winning the race. This would be a repeat of last year. He won at Charlotte last year, so I'm going to go with him winning the race. As far as a wild card in this event, wow. Didn't know some of these guys. A lot of these guys are from the Truck Series coming out and winning races, or being these opportunities like Dean Thompson here. So, damn. I'm gonna go with you went with Ryan Siegel. I'll go with Matt DiBenedetto in the 38. That's Ryan Sieg car also, and he's been a good driver over the years, good enough to get a decent finish. So I'll go with Matty D.
Yeah, the Viking Motorsports group there, which is a spin-off of out of the Sieg shop. They've been showing top 15 pace or productivity, top 15, top 20 productivity, and you never know with fuel mileage and some of the things that could come along. Tires, they save a set of tires, it could go work out in their favor. All right, so yeah, last but not least is the Coca-Cola 600. There's not going to be any bumping. 39 teams for 40 spots. We got Ross Chastain will be driving the Folds of Honor jockey, number 1 Chevy, Menards Duracell for Gumby, Bass Pro for Ballspot Dylan, Overstock for Josh Berry, the Hendrick 1100 Hendrick Cars, number 5 for Larson, Built Submarines for Keselowski, Corey LaJoy with Chili's Catch-A-Rita, Kyle Busch with Zone, Chase Elliott with Napa Patriotic Scheme, Noah Gagson, Bass Pro Shops in Winchester, Denny Hamlin with Mavis Tire, Ryan Blaney driving Body Armor Flash 4, Chase Briscoe this weekend with the Mahindra Compact Tractors Ford. This is one of his better racetracks. He's come close to winning the 600 a couple of years ago. Kaz Gralla, usual spot in 29. Shane Van Gisbergen making another start with WeatherTech, his sponsor from Xfinity, sponsoring him in Cup as well. Christopher Buescher, Fastenal, Martin Truex Jr., Bass Pro Shops. So 3 Bass Pro Shops vehicles, which is lovely. Chris Bell with Ream, Harrison Burton, Dex Imaging, Joey Logano, usual Shell Pennzoil, Bubba Wallace with Money Lion, Will Byron, the patriotic version of his Liberty University, Daniel Emmerich with Circle, Walmart and RTIC for Michael McDowell, Quincy Compressors for Todd Gilliland, Haas Tooling for Ryan Priest, Dollar Tree, John Hunter, Family Dollar for Eric Jones, the NY Racing Team actually going and showing up with JJ Ailey, the Beast Unleashed for Tyler Reddick, A. Richard for Kroger and Irish Spring, Alex Bowman with the Patriotic Ally Scheme. You have the number 50 there, which doesn't have anybody listed, is TBA. Justin Haley with the Cleaning Authority, Ty Gibbs with the Monster Energy and Interstate Batteries, 54, Focus Health for Zane Smith, Ziegler Auto Group for Hocevar, Advent Health for Johnson, and Freeway Insurance for Nacho Libre. So it's up to you. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first here.
Okay.
Pick. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. As much as I want to pick Kyle Larson here, it's gonna be tough for him to be able to do. I think he can run top 10. That's what I think he can do here. But it's probably gonna end up being another Hendrick or Gibbs car here. So which would be interesting here. So I'm gonna go with I'll go with his golf buddy Denny Hamlin to win the Coca-Cola 600. here. So I'll go with Denny to win, and then I'll go with John Hunter Nemechek as a wild card here in the 42 car.
Yeah, I mean, John Hunter has had good success on short track, sorry. 1.5 mile racetracks, whether it was in a truck or in an Xfinity car. So maybe some of that can translate here. They also ran at Kansas and ran relatively well. So they have that going as well. So we'll see what John Hunter has in store for Sunday. For me, I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the. I'm going to go. Man, yeah, that's an interesting one. I will take Byron. I'll take Will Byron as my pick. Byron to win, and then in the wild card position would be trying to think how many people you got. 30, 40. Well, 30. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. And then my wild card choice for this event will be I'm gonna go and change I will take well, yeah, Gagson is already up there, so to go and do that, and then I'm trying to think of who would be considered a good wild card selection. I will go with, I'll go with Justin Haley. Why not? Justin Haley has been showing speed recent weeks, and that I think is going to translate here this weekend at Charlotte in the longest race of the year, give them an opportunity at a possible top 15 finish there. So that would be interesting if that came off. All right, so we are complete with all of the NASCAR stuff for now, which leaves us the preview of the Indianapolis 500 this coming Sunday. That will, and we have the 33 car field as per usual, even though Tony George wanted to break that tradition. Storylines aplenty going into this. You got the Penske trio up there. You got Larson back in fifth. A bunch of Chevys up front. But I honestly think that we're going to see the Hondas be able to compete in this race. And based on that, I am going to go with Alex Palou to win at Indy. This 500. Phil. Alex Palou. And then my wild card choice, I guess, could go that way. But I'm trying to figure out the IndyCar. Yeah, there you go. The IndyCar circumstance. So then you got all these guys. 23, 24, 25. So that's so 13. So it works out. So I don't like them, but I'm gonna go with it anyway. Root Beer Floathead is my wild card after last year, and then also because he just seems to figure out a way to get to the end of the race and put himself in position. Josh, you get the last call on the Indianapolis 500. They look pretty racy out there during practice. If it is that way on Sunday, should be a good show. But who do you have hoisting or putting their name on the Borg Warner on Sunday?
I'm going to go with Alexander Rossi winning the 500. After all the talk of Penske, I think it's going to be McLaren's Alexander Rossi coming out here and getting the win and everything. So, it should be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think, for me, my wild card, I'm gonna go with his teammate in Callum Ilott in the McLaren. And first, this is probably the best ride he's been in for the Indy 500 field. So let's in his career, going and racing at Monoco last year and everything. I think this is a good opportunity for him. So doubling down on the McLarens here. So it's gonna be interesting. And you talk about how will Larson do in his first half of the double. I think he can run top 10. I think he's shown the speed to be able to do it. And obviously, I think part of the reason why he's been able to adapt so quickly is the fact that the platform for NASCAR is very similar to IndyCar these days. If you pay attention to what Bozzy Tavares says on Twitter, obviously displaying the differences and talking about the similarities. Obviously, the NASCAR has a flat underpin now underneath and independent suspension, toe links and all that. So very similar, drive and everything. And then also the aerodynamics. Larson, being in the Cup car, knows about like the aero blocking and stuff and all that. And I think that experience will definitely play at Indy. It's a little bit more efficient in the Indy car, but certainly as you get closer, behind a car, turbulence picks up, and definitely gonna have to offset your car to get air to the wing, to the front, the front wing, and get downforce that way. So now, obviously, Larson's a guy that knows where to find a line and everything, and we've seen him make moves in his career so far. So obviously, he's got a guy like Alexander Rossi to go out and learn from, get advice from, especially because we've seen Rossi make some crazy moves, in the 500 in the past, few years. Maybe more so in the era before the windscreen, the aero screen, but he knows how to make moves to get up to the front at Indianapolis for sure.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of what you said for Larson. I figure top 10 finish. Kurt Busch did it 10 years ago, finished in, what was it, 6th, I believe. And he had qualified relatively all right, nowhere near as far up front as Larson is. And then you count the fact that they have all that skill and all that experience in that team, Larson should be able to compete for a win. Mindful of the whole gear change thing. So we'll go with Kyle Larson for my for top 10, and we'll go and move on. So mention all those things, preview all the races. So let us know what's going on in iRacing and gaming, Josh, in your sim segment.
Well, in addition to winning the pole and winning at Imola, it was first Max Verstappen going out and winning the 24 hours of Nürburgring on iRacing immediately after winning the pole and making it back to go and I don't think he was actually racing when they went to start the race in Imola, but he definitely was a part of that. For sure, racing the 24 hours of Nürburgring and helping team Redline. I think that's his sim racing team that he competes with, but racing for them and that team winning that race, it's pretty funny. And if you notice, when Verstappen did his victory pose, he actually did the iRacing. I think he mimicked the iRacing logo, which has basically just the two fists like out in the air, like that. So it looked like that. So Verstappen going out there and winning. And I think there's another iRacing endurance race during the Hungarian Grand Prix. So that's his next opportunity to go out and get another one. So obviously, Verstappen, probably his real job, right? Sim racing is his real job, going out there and on the sim and winning or helping contribute to the win and doing it in real life as well. So, that's obviously the big news there in the world of sim racing, really. I mean, so, it was training a lot. So, got that. In my sim racing, I ran some Mazda Miatas at Daytona on the road course. Ran that a bunch. Definitely did all right in some parts. Then one part ran and got caught up in some wrecks and stuff. So got the wheel knocked off and had to limp it around and lose all my laps and stuff. Spun out coming onto the oval and all that. So there was some up and down for sure. There was one time that I was running in this series last week, and I turned, before going onto the oval, the turn there on the Daytona road course, I really sent it in, trying to set up a pass to pass him back coming onto the oval, and I ran into the back of this guy, and then for, I don't know, like 3 laps, he kept keying the mic on voice chat, calling me out on name, like, why'd you wreck me? And I don't know, I ignored it at first, and then eventually answered back, and I was like, well, I was like, yo, you were too slow in the middle of the corner, and I got you. So I don't know, I was didn't really want to get into him, but like I felt like in the center of the corner he was a little bit, like, it seemed like he was not intentionally brake checking me, but like, he was definitely like suddenly slowing down and like in the middle of the corner and in the apex, and I was really trying hard to send it in the corner and get back with a good exit, and got him, knocked him out of the way, and he spun out. And then I told him he was too slow, and people were like, ooh, I wouldn't take that if I were you, and everything. So that was kind of interesting there. And then we had a little bit of a battle afterwards, and then I spun out into the chicane, and then he was like, Joshua, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know, I spun out, what do you expect? And whatever. So lost that one, but that was kind of funny to do there. And then also running Laguna Seca, and spun out on the last lap in the Formula Ford. There was a lap car in front of me, and he also was slow in the corner and slowed down more than what I was expecting to, and then I had to double tap on the brake and spun out on the corner before the corkscrew. So that was a win thrown away right there because I was in the lead on the last lap there, and then did some Indy 500 testing online. A lot of people doing host sessions right now, preparing for the Indianapolis 500, and just good opportunity to go out and race against other people without it actually counting. So you can go out and do as much as you want and throw things where try different things setup wise and try different lines. So just doing more prep for the Indianapolis 500, and it seems like maybe it's the settings or whatever for the hosted session, but it seemed like the damage model for the IR18 seems to be a little bit more durable this update for whatever reasons. That was a couple times where I hit the wall pretty good, and I didn't really lose a lot of pace. So could have been damage turned off or minimized, but so I'll have to maybe go back. But it was definitely some good opportunities to kind of learn, especially Indianapolis kind of changed a little bit in the since the last time we had the Indy 500 until now. I think they repaved Indianapolis, or at least iRacing upgraded the model, so it handles a little bit differently than what it used to. So it's a little bit tighter, it feels like. So trying to get used to that. So but he was able to close up on a car and try to make an opportunity, try to pass and all that stuff. So yeah, looking forward to June 2nd, June 1st. That is when the Indianapolis 500 is on iRacing. So we're going to pick one of those time slots and then try to go for it. So probably on a Saturday, free up the Sunday, maybe do it on a Sunday. We'll see. But yeah, the Indy 500 iRacing coming up in 2 weeks. So there will be plenty of action on Indianapolis Motor Speedway with the IndyCar on the fixed series this week and next week. So in the open series, I think. So plenty of opportunity to prepare. And then the qualifying sessions are from May 28th through the 31st. So definitely going to be a lot of time spent here next couple of weeks preparing for that. So but definitely feel good about it, if anything. So just got to be able to stay out of trouble and be able to get in and out of pit road and the strategy as well. So but racetrack wise, feel pretty good about it. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's coming up. So be sure to stream that. I did stream once on Twitch this weekend, which got wrecked and everything. So the one time I actually streamed, throughout the weekend, I got crashed. So whatever. But as always, stream at Twitch TV/JP Huffline, and go on Twitch TV/UCLR2, confusing myself with Twitter. But go on there and watch all the streams and everything, and we'll probably stream more as we get to the Indianapolis 500, and then stream the Indy 500 itself on iRacing. And then Twitter at JP Huffline, of course, going out and sharing all the stuff that happened in racing this past week and sharing all the reactions and stuff with the All-Star race qualifying and all that stuff. So we'll be active, of course, on Twitter, day of the 500 and the motorsports, greatest day in motorsports. So be tweeting about that and everything. So go out and look at my stream, and follow me on Twitter at JP Huffine, of course, and follow our podcast, of course, on YouTube at Your Sure Podcasts, and subscribe to our channel there. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how the motorsports, greatest day in motorsports is. I'm sure it'll be great and all that. Hopefully the weather doesn't interrupt anything. We get a good day of weather in Indianapolis and good way of weather in Charlotte. I don't think it really matters in Monaco, but well, I guess it does matter because we've seen that before. But nevertheless, at least that race will be the least impacted by weather. So, of course, and looking forward to watching all the motorsports that takes place on Memorial Day weekend, as is tradition.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're going to talk about it all next week on the Greatest Day in Motorsports 5 edition here, episode 222 coming up. But before that, definitely take in the long weekend. We give our respect to those fallen heroes that pay the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty to serve our country on this Memorial Day weekend coming up. And and one way to honor those brave men and women is to put on some good action, good racing. And like you on Twitter, Josh, I'll be on mine, and Phil PG Matthew 28 will also be on at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. We also have, as you mentioned, the YouTube page with the video feeds. Find the Gripstrip Podcast on podbean.com. And also on WordPress, my WordPress, philipgmatthew.com. Basically, if it goes fast, we'll talk about it on the Gripstrip Podcast, and we'll also post it in a reasonably timely fashion, and we'll see what happens. So, with that, that's the end of this week's episode. We thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting, and we'll see you next time for episode 222 of the Gripstrip Podcast, talking about everything that happened in the greatest day in motorsports. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Take care, and goodbye.